This conference will now be recorded.
Oops. Good morning. Welcome to a second try at the WinCAMS webinar where we focus on pay period time card, data entry, and configuration. I did one of these a couple weeks ago and it went really well, but I failed to record it. So I am attempting to record this one and we are recording now, and then I will hopefully be able to post it onto our YouTube channel, which has some other instructional videos about WinCAMS, and will be growing as we do these webinars. And we will, and if you are looking for that, it's on youtube.com. It's called the WinCAMS channel. So you can enter questions in the chat. I got a little feedback that I got a little distracted. So what I'm going to do by the questions. So what I'll do is you can put the questions in the chat, and then I'll get to them at periodically throughout the webinar, and I'll try to not get too off topic. So I'm going to share my screen with you right now, and hopefully you will be able to see our logo there. And we will get started here. One second. Okay, so there are two time card screens in CAMS. Some of you or some of your staff do not even go into the main menus, and so you just have a login directly into pay period time cards. That's the same time card screen as you're going to find under transactions, payroll period time cards. The second time card screen is just called time cards. I usually refer to it as daily time cards to differentiate it from pay period time cards. So they're exactly what they sound like. Daily time cards is generally one day for one person, okay? And what they worked on, a list of what they worked on. And I'm not really going to be focusing on that today. That is, you can use either one to your heart's content. If you can enter time here and it will show up in the other time card, you enter time in the other time card, it will show up here. You can have them both up at the same time. You can use one in the, some people use the daily time cards throughout their pay period for their daily data entry, and then they go to the payroll period time card, which looks like this, shows an entire payroll period for one person. They go to the payroll period time card at the end of the period to sort of check in on how their whole period looks and what their totals are, rather than say running a report. Okay. The daily time cards has some functionality that people that work better for certain people, but again, different people in your organization can use one or the other. You can use one or the other. It's really up to you. So the other thing the daily time card does is it allows you to put in a crew at the top and then list all the people in the crew and what they did. As a general rule of thumb, what I recommend to people is the more things you do each day, then the more likely you're going to want to move to the daily time cards. Now, we can handle as many lines as you want on a payroll period time card. There's no problem. But if I work on 5 different things on Monday, 5 different things on Tuesday, and 5 different things on Wednesday, then it can get overwhelming on a payroll period time card because I just have so many lines to deal with, etc. So sometimes people like that mechanics, or sometimes I don't know. And we've moved to some different tools, because you can also enter time with lots of different ways to enter time now. Daily time cards, payroll period time cards. You can enter time directly on a repair order if you're a fleet person. You can enter time directly on a service request if you are entering on service requests or what some people call work orders for facilities or potentially for roads. You can enter time on our phone app currently for facilities, but this summer we're working on expanding that to everyone. So check your emails for that. You'll be getting an announcement or seeing I'll do a webinar with a demo of our time entry phone app for iPhone, Android, tablets, etc. You can enter your time on our web portal. There's a lot of different ways to enter your time. But what I'm going to be talking about today is the payroll period time card. Okay. So as I said, you can access it through transactions, payroll period time cards, or CAMS, applied charges, payroll period time cards. It's right here at the top. Okay. So what you're going to see when you come into payroll period time cards, generally, we do have some people that are set to go into what I call supervisor mode right away. But what most people see is their own time card, and usually it's your own current time card. So I see that there's Ayren Spinner, that's me, and in this particular environment, their payroll periods are 2 weeks. So here's last month's payroll period 13. Okay. The main action is happening on the main tab, and and that's where I list out all the things that I'm going to work on or that I have worked on. And then I've got my days. Here's Friday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday on the right side. Okay. And a little information about me is up here. So current user is MCD 200, and we want to link up your user login to your employee number. If you don't see that, then we can't use this, right? We can use it as perhaps as a timekeeper, or use it to look at other people's time cards. It would be fine. But to enter your own time card, we need to know who you are, who your user login relates to as far as your employee number. Okay, so that's done in the security system for your system admin. Here's the status of this time card. That's referring to the status tab. Talk a little bit about that later. And then my current authorization is employee, right? That means basically I'm just authorized to see myself. So if I go to my directory, all I see is Ayren Spinner. Okay, that's the standard situation. So I can see the current status of each of my time cards. So this is a client that has a calendar year, fiscal year. So their calendar year or their fiscal year starts at the end of December in 2019, and then my data for them only goes through last month. Okay, so you can see this looks really normal. Their time cards are posted all the way through May, and then they're moving through their statuses. So then they have a May time card into June where they've submitted it to a supervisor, or the supervisor has submitted it to the payroll, and then my quote unquote current time card is open. Okay. So what I'm going to be talking about today is primarily I want to talk about two terms that I've started using. One is your time card settings, and the other is your time card template. Okay, when I talk about your time card settings, I'm primarily talking about the columns and sort of the layout of your time card. Okay, when I talk about your template, I'm talking about the rows. Okay, so the settings, if I don't use projects, I don't want to see projects. If I don't use roads, there's no need for me to see roads. It doesn't help me to see roads, it just clutters up my life. If I don't work weekends, I don't want to see weekends. Okay, so let's talk about settings. How do we set up the settings? We right click. I'm going to right click anywhere in this grid. Okay, so when I right click, it comes up with column options for payroll period time cards. Okay, so my distribution columns, that's the left side here, I want those set up for the things that I use. Okay, so you can turn these on and off, and they will be changing in the background, right? And then once I have completed this, I can drag them around by their titles to get them lined up in the way that suits my tastes. Okay, so I've got division here. I'm in division 542 apparently. I've got activity description. Maybe I don't know my activities. Okay. I've got earnings codes. Some of you use earning codes, some of them you don't. Those are codes that we use to talk to usually to talk to an auditor system, because an auditor system doesn't usually care whether you're digging ditches or doing paperwork or you're cutting brush or striping a road or doing custodial work in a facility. What they care about is whether it's regular time, shift differential time, overtime, things like that. So that's what the earning code is normally used for. If you charge your time cards to budgets, that would be normally a Washington state account, but then you would turn that on. If you're a California site, other than a few sheriff's departments, you don't charge your time to budgets directly, so you would turn that off, and now it's gone, right? So there's project numbers. If I don't know my project numbers, I can turn on my project description, so it will pop up right into whatever project I choose will pop up right into my grid. Okay, so looks like I use roads, I use equipment. I'm going to turn off some people show their job class, range, and step so that they can, because they need to override that. Some places override their job class a lot for when they're working out of class or acting as the foreman or something like that. Okay. Correction. So basically, actually, let me not skip to that. So if you're a facilities person or a roads person and you work on service requests to determine your workflow and what you want to be working on, you can turn those on. And then here's a facility description that says, if I'm tied to a service, if this line is tied to a service request that references a facility, tell me what facility it is, so I don't have to memorize my service request numbers. Okay. So basically that distribution column sets up this left side, right? And then I can say, okay, I want my road before my project. There I go. And it's going to remember all this for my login, which is Ayren Spinner. Okay. It's going to remember all these settings for me. So I just want to set this up once and get it pretty tight and not have, I mean, if I don't use projects, like I said, or you don't use service requests, just turn them off. Okay. Corrections are, okay, you've probably seen this. You can only have the same distribution one time, right? So you can't make multiple lines that have the same activity, the same earn code, the same road, the same project, the same equipment used, right? Because if you try that, WinCAMS will say, do you want to put this time onto line 3 that already has this distribution? Makes sense, right? So we don't want to have the same distribution twice, because otherwise we get confused about where the hours go. Okay, and WinCAMS will help you with that, right? So sometimes things will look like the same distribution. For instance, if I don't show roads here, then these all look like the same distribution to me. They're all division 542, this activity, this equipment used, it's traffic control devices, right? They're all the same, but they're not actually the same, because they are pointing to different road segments in this case. Okay. And so sometimes people want they want to force the same distribution line twice, because they want to do a correction, right? So normally if I enter time, right, like this, I've got 2 hours here, I can just change this to 3 hours, no problem, right? But if these records are posted, I can't change that to 3 hours because they're posted. Now I'm going to show you a way to make that correction right in that same line. But some people, they use a correction. They use this correction field to indicate, to kind of create a different distribution, so they can create a second line with their correction. Okay. The rest of this screen is kind of interesting. So if I don't work Fridays, I turn those off. Or if I don't usually work Fridays, that's fine too. If I don't usually work weekends, I turn those on or off, right? So if I turn on weekends, you can see now I have Saturdays and Sundays in my list here. if you turn off a day, or like when I turned off roads, it doesn't get rid of the data, it just turns off that column, okay, on my time card. So if I have time on this Saturday and I turn off weekends, I haven't lost that time. It's still there. It's still going to charge whatever I charged, and it's still going to count in my totals, but I don't want to see it. So it's totally fine to turn off things that you don't use in a certain season, or turn on, you know, maybe I work overtime in the summer, but I don't work it in the winter, you know, so then I could just turn off overtime. And it's really important to turn off. The number one problem I see with people's time cards is that they don't turn off they don't turn off the pieces of the time card that they don't use, and so then their time card gets too wide. Okay, so if I don't work Fridays, I don't work weekends, maybe I work overtime, but I don't use payroll units. Those are what people use if they want to indicate, they want to set up a charge, but they don't want to use an hour. They don't want to have an hour on their time card, so they might use that for a boot allowance or a meal allowance, or places that that use standby time for 24 hours, and maybe they don't want to show, or I've had, actually, here's one, places they put in 24 hours of standby time, and then they also on top of that put in the actual time that they got called in, right? So then maybe they don't want to show 30 hours in a day, then that's doesn't look right, so they make the standby time payroll units. And that's really something that probably your system admin will determine. But maybe I don't use those, so I turn those off, and you can see that it's tightening up. If I work in an office, I probably don't use equipment, so I could just turn off equipment usage, right? And that takes away the equipment usage lines in each day. And if I want to turn off my distribution for equipment used, that's right there, right? So if you look at this column here, I turn it off, I turn it on. Okay, so what's really nice about turning off columns is you can see that I can fit it all on one screen now. And so I'm not scrolling around, getting lost. We have some tools if you do need, like there are some people that want a whole bunch of stuff over here, and they do overtime, and they work 7 days a week, and they use payroll units, and they use equipment, and there's just no way around it. So they turn on equipment usage, and they want to see their weekly totals, right? And they want to, and they work Fridays and they work weekends. So now what happens is that I get this spread out time card, right? So as I scroll over here and I want to enter time for the second Friday and the Friday of week 2, then I've lost all my distribution. So now what line am I on, right? Well, there's a couple ways to deal with that. If you have in this options panel here, where it says show distribution descriptions, that's this blue bar right here. It's a lot of information, but no matter where I am on the line, I mean, how I've scrolled right and left, my distribution information is here with descriptions. So even though if I go over here, like, you know, 542 is just shown as my division, well, I can see that for the line I'm selecting, 542 is maintenance/county roads. And I have an activity description here, traffic control devices, but I also show it here, right? My equipment used, what is MT5211? Equipment MT5211 is a 2016 Chevy Silverado, okay? And it's measured in hours. So that's one way to keep track of where I am. A second way that I really like is I right click again, bring up my column options. I'm still on my settings section of this. I highlight the selected row in yellow, okay? So now as I move about, I've got my row selected in yellow. So that's really nice to kind of keep track of where I'm at. And then I'm like, okay, I'm working with traffic control devices, road 4004. You know, I want to put some hours to that line, okay? And then the third thing that can be really helpful is called use fixed columns. So it's a moot point if you've got your time card narrowed down so it fits on one screen width-wise. There's no problem, and you're in good shape. But if you have lots of things to enter, or you know, like I have here, and I've got it going off the screen, then use fixed columns works very similarly to freeze panes in Excel. So it doesn't look like anything changed, but as soon as I click into a day, my distribution turns gray. And if I move around, watch what happens. Oops. Now my days are moving, but my distribution is staying in place. So that, combined with the yellow bar, it's very easy for me to enter time on Monday and know what I'm doing, right? I'm over here on Monday, but I've got my distribution showing here. I've got the yellow bar highlighting which distribution I'm using. And of course, I've got my blue bar that shows me this stuff. Okay. Going back to our settings, so I turn on the hours or the days I want. I've got my columns here, my hours and charges. Let's talk about some of these. So use fixed columns is like freeze panes here. Show daily time, that's this lower grid. Many of our clients have to enter daily time, like I arrived at 8 and I left at noon, and then I arrived at 1 and I left at 5. And then all that really does for us is allow them to put in comments over here if they want to add comments with their daily time, but also it allows us to match up, you know, what you're distributing. Say, what do I have here? 10 hours, I'm sorry, 10 regular hours on Monday June 8th. So then I expect to see when you were here at the office. This is not a requirement of CAMS. None of this is a requirement of CAMS, but it might be a requirement of your organization. Okay, that time in, time out. And then oftentimes when you print forms, we can print a little time in, time out summary, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, so if I don't use that, go ahead and turn it off. It's gone. Okay. Show all columns containing data. This is an interesting one. This says I don't want to select my columns here. I want to just show every column that has data. So you notice when I turn that on, even though I didn't select it over here, my budget expenditure account is unchecked, I see it here. And that can be useful for looking at someone else's time card, right? Or not getting confused on your own time card, right? Because you might get confused, as I said, if you don't show roads, well, I can't do that because I'm showing all columns. Okay, if I don't show roads and I turn it off, I might not understand what's the difference between these 5 lines. So if I'm searching around, or if I'm looking at someone else's time card, I don't know why these 5 lines are different, then I say show all columns containing data, and then I see, oh, roads pop up, they have different, well, they don't have different, but they might have different budget expenditure accounts, et cetera. Okay, and I'm going to show you another way in a minute that is a better way to look at other people's time cards and see it as they see it. Okay. Show columns from adjacent periods to complete work weeks. That's something we did particularly for Santa Cruz County, where they have work schedules defined, like 980s and different work schedules that cause them to have split days. So their Friday of one of their weeks gets pushed into the other week. And so they just have this funny situation where they have hours in the previous pay period that really count in with the totals of the current pay period. So we can show those columns so that their totals for each week end up at 40. We did the highlight selected row in yellow. Go to current day if available. It'll zoom. I mean, again, if you're entering in the past, it's a moot point, but this takes you to the current day, or it says zooms out over to the last day time was entered, right? So if I'm always 1 day behind or 3 days behind or whatever, then I can set that up. But I like to have a really clean and tight time card. So I get rid of weekends unless I'm busy working weekends, and let's say I don't work Fridays and I don't use projects. Okay, and so I'm going to turn off project and project description, and let's say I don't work overtime. if possible, I'd like to get down to this level, right? Where I can see every last thing, week 1, week 2, everything in front of me, okay? That's my goal here. Okay, so it's really important to set up those settings. And once you get them set up, it will remember, you don't have to save anything or do anything like that. It will remember for your user login, okay? Then what some people say is, okay, I've set up a really nice settings. I'm gonna get rid of facility description, and I'm gonna get rid of corrections. I've set up a really nice setting for people like me that use activity codes, earn codes, equipment usage, and that's pretty much it, right? And maybe projects. I'm gonna just turn on projects just for kicks. Okay, and I'm gonna put project description next to the project and the activity description next to the activity. Okay, so let's say I think this is a nice time card for someone who works in my area or my division or just does the things that I do. Well, then I might want to push these settings, these columns, and the way that my time card looks to someone else, okay? So if you're logged in as an employee, this button right here will allow you to copy grid settings from another user and replace my settings. So if I walk over to my friend's desk and I'm like, wow, your time card is much tighter and much better than mine, and how did you get that yellow bar and blah, 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 then I might, then instead of me having to figure out all the check boxes to make it look like theirs, I can just say copy from another user, right? And it brings up a list of user IDs, and I just go pick my friend, you know, there's Lisa, and I say make it look like Lisa, okay? So I'm gonna do that just for fun. Right now I will, actually, no, I take that back. I don't have the user configuration for Lisa, so it's probably not gonna, it's just gonna set me back to nothing. But so you can do that. Now, you'll notice that there are a bunch of other options in here that are only for when you're in supervisor mode, okay? And anyone can try to go into supervisor mode. That's this button here that's called either the walking man or the Sasquatch or the supervisor toggle, right? View time cards as a supervisor / payroll clerk / timekeeper, okay? I will talk about those, Diane, I will talk about those little M's in a second. What that means is it's for materials. So currently my authorization is employee, so I can't copy my grid settings and override another user's settings. I can't make my settings the default for everybody else. And there's no point in me viewing the time card as another employee because I can't view anyone else's time cards. My directory is only Ayren Spinner, right? Okay, so so anyone can try clicking this. And if you have the authority, two things will happen. Your supervisor tab will come up and your management tab will come up, right? You can still go back to your own time card right there. Oops, sorry. And I will do a webinar on being a supervisor soon. But right now I'm just doing a webinar on data entry and things like that. So I can still work as a supervisor. So now you'll notice that my authorization says I'm an employee and a timekeeper and payroll clerk for all divisions. Okay, I'm not going to go into what that means at this time, and I'll do that in another webinar. But what it basically means is I can see other people's stuff, right? If I go, well, actually, you can see in my supervisor tab, I've got a lot of other people I can work with here. But if I look at this same time card that's me, now my point is that when I go here, now these are all lit up. So I can copy my grid settings to another user. So Lisa, if she was a power user and I said, I love the way your time card looks, show me all the settings, she doesn't have to send me a screenshot or walk me through it or any of that stuff. She can just say, sure, I'll just copy my grid settings. And she goes like that. And then she goes and finds me wherever I guess I don't have one. I'm here. Here I am. So she just finds me and she can override. Now be careful with what you're doing. You don't want to just do that when somebody doesn't want it, but if you're the supervisor or the payroll clerk and you want to push people to to set up their time card in a certain way that's efficient, then you can do that. You can also copy it to all users in a division, all users in a branch. A branch is a grouping of employees that's used for supervisory roles. So you're basically blowing away their settings and replacing them with these settings, right? So you're saying, I want you guys to all start from this, which can be really helpful. One time I was at a health department and I had to go to each person's desk. We didn't have these features yet. And I had to turn off, like repair orders, and, they don't have mechanics and they didn't have facilities and things like that. And I had to set up so what I would have done now, had we had these features, I would have set up one person with their administrator, and then I would have said, make these settings, send it to everyone in a certain division, or really make it the default for all new users. Any one user can go ahead and then right click and change their settings to their heart's content, but it's a good starting point, and everyone should have that starting point, okay? And then the last one's kind of cool, view time card as the employee on the time card. So what that's saying is, I'm looking at, it makes no difference if you're looking at your own time card, but if you're supervising or being a payroll clerk and you're looking at someone else's time card and they enter their own time card, or even if they don't necessarily, then you can have a completely different setup. So if I look at mechanics time cards and I look at road crews time cards and I look at custodians time cards and I look at administration's time cards and engineers time cards and whatever are the different types of job classes or positions in your environment, I can see that. So then I don't have to wonder about, like, as I move from road crews to mechanics or whatever, then I can just click this and then I look at it, it does no change if you're looking at yourself, but if I'm looking at someone else and I have their user configuration, I can't really do it very well because I don't have other people's user configurations because those are all at your sites. Then I can see the time card as they see it. And another thing to do is, like, if somebody's having trouble with their time card or complaining about entering time cards, just go to their time card if you're an administrator or their supervisor and open their time card and look at and view it as them and see what happens. And you might say, wow, I can help you set up your time card in a much more clean way because I did this webinar with Ayren, okay? Okay, so that's essentially the settings. There's a couple more things in the in this right-click pop-up. Restore grid defaults just puts it back to the way we deliver it. I don't, in the order that we deliver it, with the fields that we show you, etc. And then these three buttons, they only work if you highlight a specific cell. So this gets back to Diane's question about the little M's, okay? So if I highlight a specific cell and then I right-click, then I can do a few things. I can edit the comment for that day. Comments are tied to days, right? So if I click that, I've got a short comment and an extended comment, right? And so some people have requirements about, you need to put a comment on every day. What were you doing? Whatever else. But that's up to you. And those comments can also usually be printed on a form if you print a form. And then you can also view the time card labor detail. Now, in this case, there's not going to be any difference, but it's a pop-up that shows you the same 2 hours, right? And what's in there for those 2 hours. And if you've ever seen a red cell or a duplicate entry cell, this is how you can deal with it, right? So if I add a second line here, now if I want 3 hours, why don't I just type 3 hours in the cell? That's perfectly correct. But if I did this, so now I have 2 and 1, what you'll notice is that these cells go red. And the reason they're red, that leads me to my color legend, okay? So this is another kind of, I guess it goes with settings. Your color legend is also only for you, and it describes how this blue bar is set up and the reasoning for the colors in the grid, okay? So so red means multiple records in our default setup, okay? So what that means is this 3 is not just a 3, it's multiple records. And if I want to deal with it, the easiest thing to do is right click and say view time card labor detail, and I go, oh, somehow I got a 2 and a 1 in there. Maybe it came from daily time cards, 2 lines with the same distribution, and they added up to 3, right? Well, all this means, there's no problem, we can handle this, and maybe red is a scary color, but all it means is that if I type a 4 there, I get this message. There are multiple entries for this date and distribution. You can select view time card labor detail from the grid menu, or use the main CAMS time card program, the daily CAMS time card. Because if you change it to a 4, what do? Do I increase the 2 to a 3, or the 1 to a 2, or do I consolidate the lines? I don't know what to do. I just can't deal with any changes. I can leave it red. There's nothing wrong with it being red, and duplicate. But what I might do is I might say, okay, I know what to do there. I'm going to delete this line and change this line to a 3. And now my red is gone. Okay. Now, the reason we have this feature is really because what if this 3 hours is posted? Well, then I can't change it here, and I can't even change it here, right? This 3 hours has been posted, it's locked, but I want to back it out and I want to do it here. Well, then I can just go ahead and hit plus and put in -3, back it out. So then I see that there are, that's fine. This is just saying, hey, the equipment units are 0 and the labor hours are 3. So that's a check that we have in here because it's saying this equipment is measured in hours, which is defined in the vehicle and equipment master. But so you're telling us that I mean, this is kind of funny because it's negative, but you're telling us you did more you used the equipment for more hours than you worked. Is that correct? I'm not sure. In this case, I'm putting in a correction. So it reminds me, it's actually a good reminder. I corrected the hours, but I didn't correct the equipment units. So you know what? I think I want to correct the equipment units too. I'm going to put in a -2 there. Okay. So now you'll see that this all goes to 0 and red because I have 2 records. I don't need 2 records because I could just change these, but if the first line was posted, that would be a good way to do a correction. Say if I used the wrong activity code or the wrong project or something like that. So I would back out that line and put the hours on another line. Okay. So in this case, I don't want to do a correction, so I'm going to delete that. Okay. And then the last thing in here is the materials detail, and this gets to Diane's question. So long ago, people said to us, people turn in their paper time cards, and if they use materials, and I know not all of our clients use materials, but our road clients definitely use materials. And they put their materials right on their time card on another grid or on the back of their paper time card or whatever. And so rather than going to the shop inventory issues or the road materials inventory issues or the miscellaneous materials issues, you can just say, I want to add materials, right, to this day and this distribution, right? So I'm going to go and I'm going to right click. I'm going to say time card materials, and I'm going to just start, I'm going to add a record. So I'm going to say road materials, Merrill's Corner, chips, right? And then I say how many I used. Okay. And then what should happen, let's say I used 100. Now what should happen is a little M will pop up there to indicate there are materials tied to these hours. That's all. And those materials will show up. You'll notice on the daily time cards, there's a whole tab for it, right? And this is a good time so that was on the 8th of June. So let's go to the 8th of June here. I've got it filtered down to myself only. Where is the 8th of June? There it is. Okay, so here's the same lines that I was entering on the payroll period time cards, and here's my materials, right? So there's my chips at Merrill's, my 100. Apparently there were already other materials on this time card, and so this just added on to it, right? So that's the materials tab there, and this would post and create an issue in the road inventory issues. So this indicates, because I don't want to create more columns for materials. We thought about that and experimented with it a little bit. We didn't want to have the grid cluttered up like that. So that's where you can deal with your materials if you're doing data entry here. Okay, so I think that's it for settings. The next thing I want to talk about is templates. Okay, so templates are the things I normally work on. Okay, a lot of our clients tend to want to, they copy, right? So if they use this button right here and they say, I'm going to take my last period's time card and I'm going to copy it into another period, say period 14, right? And maybe they copy the hours, I don't know. Okay, flickers around, they get basically the same time card. Okay, so now I get the same time card, and it tried to put the hours on the correct day. Sometimes it's tricky to figure out which day it goes on, but you see the same 11 hours and 10 equipment hours with the same 5 things, and that works okay. Copying time cards works okay, but I don't recommend it, and I have a few reasons why. The first reason, and some of our clients have asked us to remove this option to disable the copy hours and usage because it promotes laziness. Frankly, if I have a whole time card filled out, you know, with all these days, you know, it's like, and then it just comes in and there's all my hours across all my days. Well, then, you know, I'm very likely to be like, well, it adds up to 40, and I'm kind of good, you know, because you know, maybe I'm just lazy, or maybe I don't care, or maybe I just want to get paid. It's all regular hours. I don't know. So I don't want to promote laziness. The second thing is that, and this is the real deal breaker for me, it doesn't work across fiscal years. So if you've had people complain about that, or you've run into it yourself, that you have that you get into your new fiscal year, whether that's July or January, and then people scream and they say, I can't find my old time card in order to copy it. Well, then you have to recreate your time card. We don't have a provision for that copy feature to go. So that's a real deal breaker. And then the last thing is that when you copy, you get the exact lines that you had in the previous period. And what that generally results in my experience, is that your time card grows and grows and grows, right? And so what I'm going to show you is a template option that allows you to have a template of all the things you normally work on. Then in any given period, you can add any one-offs or special things you work on, maybe update your template, maybe not, that's fine. And then each period bring back your template. Okay, and it's a clean template, but it has all the things you normally work on. Now, of course, if you work on different roads, different activities, different vehicles, different service requests each period, well, then a template isn't exactly going to help, because we don't know what those service requests, roads, vehicles are going to be, right? But what I know that you do have is vacation. You have sick leave, you might have staff meetings, you might have other kinds of standard time, shop cleanup time. All these things can be in your standard template, and then you can add on your one-offs, right? And that's another reason that copying is no good, because I copy the previous period and I've got all these service requests or all these repair orders or all these projects that are completed, right? And I'm not going to work on them in this period, so then I have to start deleting lines. Okay, so the templates are controlled with these buttons here, okay? Save distribution items to timecard template and load distribution items from timecard template, okay? And so let's just say these were the 5 things I normally work on. Although actually I'm gonna add some lines. I'm gonna add a vacation. Hopefully, apparently these people don't, this division doesn't get vacation. I'm gonna add some other activities, right? I'm gonna do blading operations with no equipment, because maybe somebody else puts in the equipment. And I'm gonna add a line for gravel replacement you know, so basically I've got my things in there. I go through, I enter my time, right? So I'm going to put, say that I did 10 hours of this on Tuesday. Actually, I didn't need to save that. I'm going to say on Wednesday, I did 5 hours of this and 5 hours of this. The reason they have it set to default the 5 equipment hours when I put in 5 labor hours, because the equipment is measured in hours. That's something we can turn off or turn on, but it's a good idea that if I'm saying I'm using this equipment, then, and the equipment is measured in hours, then it makes sense to default it to the same number of hours as my labor hours. So I just move around this like a spreadsheet, maybe how about 10 here, and for Monday I do 10 here and 10 here, and I normally would like to go on vacation at some point, but these people don't get vacation. Oops, sorry. Or maybe this site doesn't use vacation, and I'll do 6 and 4 there. Okay, so you notice that it's all turning green, and down here in the corner it says modified 14, and that's to promote performance so that we aren't stopping and validating and saving at each time you leave a cell. So we just keep track that you've modified 14 cells, and then you can either hit enter or hit the check mark, and it will validate your entries, and it says what it's validating, line 1, line 2, different days, and now it's all saved. If it ran into anything that it didn't like, it would tell me, that activity, you can't use equipment with it, or something like that, right? Hold on one sec here. Yes, Michelle, so back to the materials. You'll notice that I don't have materials here because I moved to a new period. If I go to the previous period, there's my materials. Materials are only here on the time card, and they have to get posted through posting, applied charges, post time card materials, and that's when they will be deducted from inventory. Okay. And now you can post time card materials more often than you post time cards. So if you have people that are on top of their time cards doing them every day, and you want to post time card materials every day to update their inventory, that's totally fine. It's just a convenience that we have the materials entry here, because a lot of people think that way and they don't want to have the issues screen open, right? So that's up to them. Robin says, we just went through a new fiscal year. How do we copy templates from last year to this year? Well, that's the beauty of templates. You don't need, they're tied to your user ID. They're not tied to a fiscal year. That's why they're better than copying. Okay, so let me go back to my period 14 where I've got more lines. Okay, templates are generally rows, right? So my settings are my columns and my options here, and my template is my rows. So then I say, save all distribution items to time card template. Okay, so it says, do you want to save your 7 distribution rows to the time card template? And now it's saved, and it's saved to me only. Okay, and so then I can say, okay, now instead of copying, or when I get to a new year, I can go in here, and let's say I do period 15. I just create a new time card. Okay. Oops, I'm locked into period 13. Hold on. So the reason it did that, I tried to create period 15 and it went to period 13 because in my supervisor tab, I'm only looking at period 13. So let me go get out of supervisor mode. Okay. And here's my period 15. Oh, apparently I already had a period 15. Let's try making a period 16. Okay, so now I have a blank time card for period 16, right? And now this button here says load distribution items from time card template. Oh, does a row already exist? Apparently it created a row. Okay, so let me, cleared the row. Now load distribution items from time card template. A little bit of flishing and flashing. There's my distribution, right? So now I'm ready to go. I've got my settings set. I got my 7 lines of the things I normally work on, and I just move around like a spreadsheet. right? And just start entering my time. And then if I have any one-offs like jury duty or special project or something like that, I can add those. Or if I'm a person who works on different things every day, like a mechanic or a road crew worker or a custodian or a facilities maintenance worker or something like that, then maybe my template only consists of vacation, staff meetings, safety meetings, sick leave, all my standards, and then I add my daily, the stuff I do each day as needed, right? And so I have people that have templates that are this big or templates that are 40 lines long, people that never have to enter anything outside of their template, or people that only use a portion of their template, okay? Let's see, I'm getting some questions here. Okay, I think I answered Robin. So Robin, to your question, that template will just persist, right? So that template is there. It's my template until I change it. So if I add some new things to my time card and I want those to be my template, I just add some new things and I hit save to template the next time, right? And then it overwrites my old template. Laura enters time for road crews. They do something different each day and do multiple activities per day, as well as use multiple pieces of equipment. Will this? Yeah, you can do that. There's no what you'll get is a stair-step look, right? You can totally do that. Let's see. So what you'll get is on Monday, you'll have 5 different things, 5 different activities, 5 different pieces of equipment, and then all their time will be on Monday and it'll add up to 8 or 10 hours, right? And then on Tuesday, they'll need 5 different lines, which is fine. You can have hundreds of lines, you know, depending on how long your periods are. You know, if you've got 2 weeks and let's say you did 6 different things a day, if you only work Monday through Thursday, that's 48 lines, right? And if you never duplicate it, then it will totally work for you. Now, as I said, some people just find that to be overwhelming or they don't want to, so you could enter it on the daily time cards and then you have 1 per day, right, of the different things you do that day, and then, but then maybe you go to the payroll period time card at the end of the period to just make sure you got everything and you didn't miss anything. So either one will work. What you'll get is what I call the stair-step look. You'll have like all your entries here, and then you'll go to Tuesday and you'll be like, okay, none of these entries apply anymore, so I need to create 5 new lines or whatever they worked on, and then they'll all come in on Tuesday. So yes, it will work either way. If a piece of equipment has a linked attachment, will it automatically be added? There are some settings for linked. Yes, it should ask you, I believe. We have more buttons for that. Michelle's asking about linked equipment. That's where you attach a trailer to a blade or a spreader or something to a piece of equipment. And it's basically a reminder or an automatic process that when I use this equipment, for the time period I specify that it's linked, I want to always put the same number of hours or miles on the linked equipment. So yes, it should have that functionality and warn you and ask if you want to create the same line or something like that. I believe that is true, but you can try it and let me know if it's not doing what you're wanting it to do. Okay, so Robin said, okay, great, how to make the template. Okay, so let's go through that one more time. So making your template is just basically making your time card, okay? So I've got this time card here. I've got this time card here, okay? And then, you know, maybe I have vacation. A lot of people like vacation at the top or sick leave. I got the things I normally work on, right? And then I fill out my time card, right? So let's just say, let's not worry about what's actually on this time card, but I'm gonna fill out my time card. 3 and 7, 4 and 6, 10 down here, and 10 there. Okay, nice clean week. That's all it takes. If I have a clean time card and I've already got the things I work on, I'm done, right? I did 40 hours of work and 20 hours of equipment, always using this Silverado. Maybe I'm a guy who drives around in that Silverado looking at traffic control devices or something. I don't know what I do. Doesn't really matter. But the idea is that I set up my time card so it's easy to fill out. So now I've got maybe I add a few more lines for for new things I did or things I did one time or whatever. This is the button right here. And if you hover over any of our buttons, they should show you what they do. So save all distribution items to timecard template, okay? So I say save 7 distribution rows to timecard template, and notice that it's asking, it doesn't ask me whose template to save it to because I am me, right? So it knows. And I'm going to show you something in a second so it saves these distribution items, it blasts away my previous template, and now it shows me this is my new template, okay? Now, some cool things can be done here. So that now I have my template, okay? Now on this old time card, you'll note that I didn't use lines 3 or 4, right? I just didn't happen to use them. And let's pretend I did my second week. I haven't filled out my second week, but I didn't use lines 3 or 4. So now I don't really need lines 3 or 4. That's another advantage templates have over copying, right? Because if I want to use lines 3 or 4 next week or next period, I have to leave them here if I'm copying, right? Because I don't want to lose them and I don't want to recreate them. But with a template, I can say, I don't need these. I can tighten up. I have people that have 40 line templates, and then when they use 8 or 10 or 13 of the lines, they clean up their time card, right? So I can delete these lines, or I can use my eraser, clean up, remove lines with no hours. 2 lines with 0 hours will be deleted. Okay. Tighter time card. Now, people that copy say, "Oh no, don't do that because now I don't have those lines to use next month, next period." Well, I can hit plus. It already knows who I am. Create a new period. For some reason, mine's creating a line for me, which I don't want. But now I've got a blank time card. Now the button right next to it, load distribution items from time card template. Since I'm on my own time card, it knows that it's my template that I want, and there's my 7 lines again. So what you just saw there was I tightened up period 16, so there are no lines. So if I didn't use vacation, or I didn't use sick leave, or I didn't do a certain activity, I did no gravel replacement, right? Well, then I don't need those lines. And so I just want a cleaner time card that I can. Now, it's also fine to have blank lines. There's no problem having blank lines, but maybe I want a cleaner time card. So that's really nice. So I literally have people that have 40 or 50 lines on their template, and then they clean it up. And then the next period, as you can see, their template comes back and they have all the possibilities again, and they just start using it like a spreadsheet or filling everything in. Okay, so you'll notice that when I save to my template and when I load from my template, it just goes ahead and does it. If you are a supervisor or a timekeeper who enters other people's time cards, and I think Robin might have said that, or somebody watching, what I know some of you enter other people's time cards. Now watch what happens if I go into supervisor mode and I'm not just looking at my own time card anymore. Then let's say I go to, no, I don't want to do that. Let's find somebody that has a time card. Okay, so if I go to Marlene McDonald, right? So this time card, why is it fuchsia? Because posted entries are fuchsia. If you don't like that, make posted entries green, or use our default pastels for a softer look, whatever you want to do, okay? Now, I might say, okay, Marlene, I might want to view it the way that Marlene views it, right? I don't have Marlene's user configuration, but you do. So you can, if you, you don't have Marlene's, but you have somebody's, so you could view it as they view it and see what they see. But if I want to save this to the template, right? So Marlene has 2 lines. She does general services and paid admin leave. Well, if I say save distribution items to the template, now CAMS is smart enough to say, hey, Ayren, you're the user, Ayren is the user, but the time card we're looking at is Marlene. So what are you asking me to do? Are you wanting to save to yourself, your own template, or are you wanting to save to Marlene's template? Right? So does that make sense? This is only when I'm looking at someone else's time card and I'm acting as a supervisor or a payroll clerk or a timekeeper or a branch supervisor or something like that, where I'm not looking at my own time card, I'm looking at someone else's time card. So then it says, which one do you want to do, right? And if I load from template, so if I go create a time card for Marlene, it wants to start with me, but I'm going to use Marlene, and I say period 17. I tried to add a, oops, what have I done now? 17, Marlene. Okay, and then if I try to load from template, right? Again, it says, who do you want to load from? You're a user CSS, but you're looking at Marlene's time card. So are you saying you want, so are you doing Marlene's time card for her, or do you want to load your own template onto her time card, which is fine. You know, maybe that's a good way to get started with, you know, hey, I'll set up your time card template to match mine, right? So that's one way. If I have a coworker who's new or thinks my template is really nice and doesn't want to manipulate theirs, then if I'm there, then we could ask our supervisor or a timekeeper to do this, or I could go to my time card. I could go to my time card, which is right there, and I could say, and I could do a copy, I guess, from my time card and copy it to a different employee. And so then they would have a time card as themselves, and then they could save it to their template, whatever you want to do to get that started. Okay. Okay, another thing, a lot of people want to, when you add in lines, you might want, like, a lot of people want their vacation and their non-productive time at the top. You can do that by dragging. You grab the number like that and you drag it up to the top. Or you can highlight a line and use your arrows to move up and down. But that's only one line at a time. So I'm just making gravel replacement line 5, right? And so I want things that, like, things grouped together, whatever. And remember that that doesn't change my template until I say save template. Okay. Let's see, what else do we need to talk about here? Okay, so the status tab is interesting. Every time card starts out as open. Okay, and this is literally when you open it. So it's opened by me on this date, okay? And then it can have a comment, right? And then if you use this, you don't have to use this setup. This particular client account has 2 levels of submittal. The employee submits it and the branch supervisor approves and submits, okay? We can also have direct supervisor approvals and branch group supervisor approvals. If you're a smaller agency or you just don't want to, you don't need to have all those submittals, but you can have them, okay? But we're thinking about time card entry and the submittal process. Mostly what I do is when I'm acting as an employee, so I'm gonna go, so now I'm acting as an employee and I'll go to that time card, right? So I filled out this time card and I filled it out for week 1. So depending on your protocols, you can say employee submit here. You can check that box, or what I like to use is the red checkbox, and you hit that button and it says, do you want to submit through week 1, submit through all the way through week 2, or submit the date range of the time that I've entered, or submit the entire payroll period. Okay, so I'm going to say submit through week 1. It checks the box, it puts in the week 1 dates for me, and it's not saved yet, but once I save it, watch what happens. Now, week 1 is gray. I can no longer change week 1. Cannot edit. Your authorization for this time card is employee. The time card status for 7/20 is employee submit. So this time card has, if you think about it in the real world, this time card has left my desk and it's on my supervisor's desk or the payroll clerk's desk or whoever's above me. Okay. And if you set those up well, it can be a really smooth, well-oiled machine. And you'll notice, so let's say I accidentally did that because I was just playing around and I'm like, but I'm not done with Thursday, the 23rd. I wanna update Thursday, the 23rd. So I get clever and I either wanna uncheck that, can't do it. As an employee, I can't. Or I wanna go here and say 07/22/20. You can't contract the date range, right? And the reason I can't contract the date range is because what would that mean? If I changed it to 7/22, that means I'm opening up 7/23 and I've already submitted it. So what do I do in this situation? And we'll talk more about this in the supervisory time card webinar. What I would do if I was messing around with checkboxes and didn't realize that they meant something, I would ask my supervisor or the payroll clerk to uncheck this for me. And they just go to my time card, uncheck it, and now it's back to me, right? And now I can edit it or whatever. So after I fill in week 2, let's just do week 2 real quick. Okay, that's, depending, I'm making my time card very simple. I understand that some people have to do lots of different things each day and etc. But basically I want to get my 40 hours in here. So I do week 2, then I can just go back here and I can say submit through week 2 and it will bump it out. Now the entire time card is gray for me. If I log in as a supervisor of this person or as a payroll clerk or something like that, then these will be, I can edit these and these statuses will be available to me, or I could uncheck the employee submit status. Okay. The corrected, these normally go in chronological order, right? So it starts by being open, then we submit from the employee, then the branch supervisor, the last supervisor. There's up to 3 supervisory roles: direct, branch, and branch group. The last supervisor approves and submits. The previous supervisor is just approved. So we can turn on direct supervisor and there'd be another checkbox in here. And so it would basically kind of, and I'll talk about that in the supervisory webinar, but the supervisory tab and the management tab help you move your time cards through those steps. But there's no need for you to use those steps if they don't suit your operation. Now, some people tell us that the corrected status is for when a time card needs to change after the employee has submitted it, right? Then we can turn on the corrected status and this corrections tab will, or this corrections grid will start filling in, and it will keep track of every single change that you make to the time card. The notes are just like every other screen, most screens in CAMS, unlimited notes. You can make new pages. You can just, insert your date, time, and initials. You can print them, etc. Okay. The linked files, many people, they fill out a paper time card, and so they might want to scan that paper time card to a PDF and then link it to this time card, so that if there's any dispute or any review later, like I didn't work 6 hours on traffic control devices on Tuesday the 21st, then we can go, without going to the file cabinet, we can look at the PDF, right, of your linked files, right? So I can, let's see if I have a file that I can drag over there. Well, I could drag and drop. Let's see. There's my granddaughter. Here's a picture. This is a JPEG. So I can drag that onto there and it will show up, right? And you notice that my settings make it put it onto our server. The original location was on my desktop, and now it just follows this time card around. And now anytime I look at this time, anyone looks at this time card, they will be, if they have access to this time card, they will see that there's a linked file attached to it, and they can double click on it and whatever Windows will do with it. Go ahead, Windows. There we go. It's a picture. okay? This could be a PDF, it could be an Excel file, it could be a picture, it could be a Word document, whatever. We don't open it, we tell Windows to open it, okay? Okay, so you'll notice that my add and delete and those buttons and my copy line, create another line are all grayed out because this time card has been submitted. And so I no longer have access to mess around with this time card, right? If I go to my next time card, then it's still open and these buttons are available. So if I want to copy a line, I can copy a line, right? And you'll notice it copies you have two options when you copy a line. See, we don't want the same line, right? We talked about that. We don't want yes, you can submit daily, Janine. We don't want to talk about, or we don't want to put the same line in twice, right? Because we get confused. Which line do the hours go with? So when you say copy a line, it says, do you want to copy the line with hours? And we'll set that line to a correction line. Or do you want to just copy the distribution? And then we even have an option to set the values to negative. That's where if you say this entire period, Ayren charged his time to the wrong project. So I want to make a copy of the line and charge them to a different project. So I make that copy and I set the values to negative. Now, of course, if they aren't posted, I could just set all the hours to 0 right in the time card, no problem. Or do I want to just copy the distribution, right? And then it leaves me in edit mode. I haven't saved it. I have no hours here, and I can say, okay, why did I need a new line? Oh, a different equipment number? Sure, let's use a different equipment number. And now I have a reason to have a new line. Janine's question was, can you submit daily? Yes, we don't have so you would use one of two things. So watch. So I'll enter my first day. Let's say I use my new line, 8 hours there, 2 hours there. Okay, this person works 10 hours. I just happen to know that he's got a work schedule 4 10s. Okay, and so now I've entered my Monday, right? So then I could, if I wanted to, I could go to my employee status. I could say, I can type in the dates, or I can just say submit the date range of time entered, right? So I've entered through 8/3, and I do that, and I save it, and now only this 8/3 is gray. So then if I enter 8/4 and put my 10 hours there, I'm all good there. So I've got 20 hours total for the week. Then I can go to my status tab if I wanted to, and I could submit date range of time entered. Okay, I could just change this date to a 8/4, but I might just use this, and it automatically does that. And whatever dates are here, as the next check boxes get checked, they will follow suit, right? So yes, I could do one day at a time, and my supervisor could check theirs, and it would follow suit. It would go down the line, and we could do one day at a time, locking each day one by one. After entering data on the daily time card for the work week, I run a report. Yes, this is the same data, right? So I just put in 10 hours on Tuesday the 4th for Ayren Spinner. So I go to the daily time cards, and I go to Tuesday the 4th of August. There's the same hours, same 10 hours, the same activity, whatever else is on there, right? Not as many options in this grid, but the same 10 hours are there. So it doesn't matter where you enter them. I can enter them here, there, or both. I can have them both up at the same time. So it will show up on a resource usage report, a time card audit trail, a time card distribution, any of the reports in there. And by the way, I am going to do a general reporting webinar, excuse me, webinar next Tuesday, same time, next Tuesday, the 21st. It's going to be just like this, about an hour and a half, hour and 45, depending, and we'll go through reports and what and how to use reports, control breaks, selection criteria, all that. And we've done a bunch of new features in reports this summer or this spring that are kind of cool. So we can talk about, maybe we'll talk about that report. I don't know. Okay, so we talked about this little icon here is the whether you are linked to a repair order. That's for our linking our repair order labor to our time card. So if that will turn green if the hours that you select happen to be linked to a repair order, which means that when I type in here, they show up on the repair order. When I type in the repair order, they show up here. It's all linked together. This, the daily time cards, and the repair order. Oops. Let's see. This is some people use employee defaults. You can set up default distribution items in the employee screen. There's a defaults tab, you know, I feel like personally, I think that was a first round. The templates are better. I can save it instead of saving it to the employee. I can save it to the user, and then it's more. I don't want to go to another screen. I don't want to save it. The employee defaults, if I want to modify them, I have to go to the employee, and I just rather use the templates. We talked about the eraser button that cleans up our time card without destroying our template, moving lines up and down, and this was our sharing settings. This button here is a cool one. So I can, this is to select the sort sequence. So some people, they put in time and then they want to look at it in order by earn code or by activity or whatever, right? So let's say I want to look at it in order by equipment used. So I can take that one and move it up in the sort sequence, right? So that's saying this is the most important thing in the sort sequence. Now it's ordered by equipment used. Okay, so all my equipment that I did, all the MT 5211 are together, right? So, or I could go back and say order by activity, or how about by activity description? Okay, so B for blading, G for gravel, T for traffic. Okay, and that doesn't affect the data, that just affects the way it's displayed. Let's see, what else is there to discuss in time cards? Many people print a time card form. We usually customize that for people. Looks like this site has current biweekly with weekends and a current biweekly without weekends, either a blank form for people to write on or with hours and usage, and they can say whether they print their comments. So this is the payroll period time card for Franklin County Department of Public Works. So you'll notice that that theirs is set up. So I only had hours on 3 of the lines, so those are the only ones that show up. And they have, so if you have a time card that this is customized for them. If you need a time card, or if you have a county time card that paper time card that you need people to sign, frankly, I think that this is much more powerful than signing, but I know a lot of places still require signing time cards with a wet signature. Okay, have we covered everything that we wanted to cover? Let's see here. Here's a question. I'm saying that any information added on the payroll period time card will show up on the daily. Currently, I enter all crew members on a daily one. Will it show up like that, or will it show up by the employee? The payroll period time card will show up by the employee in here. The employee, or the payroll period time card, does have a column for crew. So I can see that I was working in crew 3 for those hours, but if I entered a crew 3 in the daily time cards and put in 20 different people, or 5 or 3 or 1, behind the scenes, it will be creating each of them their own payroll period time cards. So I can see so if you have people moving around from crew to crew, That would work great. So that's a perfectly reasonable way to use it. I put in all people's time maybe on the daily time cards, and then at the end of a week, I go to each of their, or I look on my supervisor tab, and we'll talk about that, you know, and I can see how many hours they have entered, right? Oh, I only got 20 for Ayren, but his partner on his crew got some other number, right? So they're completely interchangeable. You can use one in the morning, one in the afternoon. You can have them both up at the same time, no problem. But it will only show up by employee here. The crew will be listed here if they were working in different crews. Let's see. I think we probably need a whole webinar on leave balances. But if you have leave set up, then they should show here, and the pending means including what has been entered, right? So if I was entering an hour of vacation, it should come off of my vacation up here. Okay, if it's set up correctly. And if you don't want to include pending, if you turn that off, then it will be as of the last time you posted. And we won't be live working with the entries on this time card. Request leave is a button that that takes you to another screen. If you use that, that is a leave time request screen that has a bunch of features as far as printing a form, being approved by your supervisor, et cetera, right? So when I hit that button, it brings up this other screen, and it already knows who I am, and it assumes that I'm wanting to do it for today. I could change that, of course, number of hours, and then the detail of what type of leave I'm using, right? And then if the leave balances are verified and my supervisor approves this, then they can hit a button to create the time card entry. So we have places that are so locked down that they don't allow entry of leave. You can't just go to a time card and enter leave, right? So what you have to do is you have to enter a leave request, and then once it's approved, the create time card entry button will light up, and the supervisor will create the time card entry. And it has emailing capabilities. It's pretty cool. Let's see. Michelle says, will you review how you set up crews and assign employees? So crews are going to be in your applied charges. So I've got crew. I was working in crew 3, as I recall. So there's crew 3, and who are the supervisors of this crew? Who are the employees of this crew? There's me. Okay. Now you can see that the supervisors, that's a data entry grid. I decide who the supervisors of this crew are. For the employees of this crew, it's just a list, and that is because on the employees, you do it on their assignment tab, right? So on their assignment tab, you assign them to a crew. Now, that is not necessary. A lot of places, they move people around and they say, well, we make up our crews each day. Well, then you're not going to assign anybody to a crew like that. You're just going to put in a crew on, you're going to either go to your daily time card, hit plus, say crew 03, right? And then start putting in your people. Oops, I need to clear my filters here. So I was filtered only to my own time card. So crew 02, Connell Road, right? And then I just can start putting in my people if there are people in that crew that day. I believe I also have some things over here, load grid with employees assigned to this crew, right? So then now they did different things. There's different ways to do it. I might put in one person and then copy down to all the other people in this crew. I might say load grid with the people in this crew, right? There are 11 employees, and I don't know who they are. So it depends on if you have assigned crews or not, but that crew assignment takes place in the assignment tab of the employee screen. Or I can stick with my payroll period time cards and I just say which crew the person's working in that day, right there. Is there a way to show leave balances in the new year before you do the final ledger transfer? I don't believe so. I would say go ahead and do the final ledger transfer. You can do it, in most cases, you can do it multiple times. You know, it's as good. We want to make the ending balance from last year the beginning balance for this year. So, if there's still time cards to post in the old year that are gonna update the balances, that should be fine, and we should be able to handle that, doing that final ledger transfer again after you've posted your final period of the new year. And I'd be happy to work with you, Judy, on that directly. What I'm trying to keep this focus to is payroll period time card entry. I think that's about everything that we need to talk about. Okay, so I think that's it. I went a little faster this time. Hopefully I got all your questions answered. I'm going to record this and attempt to put it onto our YouTube channel, which has some other videos already there. If you want to subscribe to WinCAMS channel on YouTube, and I will be doing lots more of these. They've been really successful. So I appreciate you coming, appreciate you watching, and if you have any specific questions about your environment or how to use payroll period time cards or anything about CAMS at all, I'd be happy to just send me an email in my name, Ayren at cascadegovsoftware.com. If you have generic questions or just want support, you can send it to support@cascadegovsoftware.com anytime, day or night. So I think that's it. Thanks for coming, and don't forget, July 21st, next Tuesday, I'll be doing one on reporting, and I hope to see you there. Thanks, everyone.